Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Broadcasting live from North Nashville, Tennessee. North Nashville spans from Metro Center down to the border of Bicentennial Mall, including the neighborhoods of Bordeaux, Buena Vista, Parkwood Estates, Germantown, Haynes Manor, Jefferson Street, Fisk Park, Cumberland Gardens, Oak Valley, Enchanted Hill, and many others. It's perhaps best known for the 3 universities housed here, including Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. North Nashville is also home to the Tennessee Titans practice facility. The Tennessee Titans will begin construction on an expansion project at St. Thomas Sports Park, which will almost double its current footprint in Nashville's Metro Center neighborhood. The plan includes 60,000 square feet in additions, including a new building situated along one of the practice fields, and major renovation of spaces within the existing 75,000 square foot building.
Now live from North Nashville, Dr. William Head. Let's talk about it.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to North Nashville TV, the voice of the voiceless. Today we're at Vanderbilt University at the Center of Cognitive Medicine, talking to our favorite interview man, Dr. Newhouse.
Advertise your business or ministry on the North Nashville online TV station. Every commercial you have seen was produced by North Nashville Production. Are you looking to watch some of your favorite family TV shows like The Dick Van Dyke?
The Dick Van Dyke Show. Starring Dick Van Dyke.
Lucy?
The Lucy Show.
The Cosby Show and more? Look no more. With our service, you can instantly access hundreds of classic family TV shows. Plus, you can watch them anytime and anywhere.
Hi, this is Cannonball White, Cannonball's Covers, 4010 Clarksville Pike. We're going to talk a little bit about my shop and what we do around here. All types of upholstery, and we've done things for a lot of people over the years, a lot of celebrities and things like that. I've been in the business 51 years. Our work is excellent, and as you notice my shop, I'm a pretty big Tennessee fan.
At Cannonball's Covers, we restore all makes and models automobile seat covers, tops and upholstery, auto seat covers, automobile detailing, furniture repair and refinish, and much, much more. Our hours are Monday through Friday 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Or give us a call at 615-269-7882. That's 615-269-7882, or visit our website at www.cannonballscovers.net.
Doc, how are you?
I'm very good. Glad to be here with you.
Hey, we're glad to have you. The Alzheimer research in this country seems to be making some headway. Tell us about what's going on.
Right. Well, this is a very exciting time to be in this field. I've been studying Alzheimer's disease and trying to develop treatments for almost 40 years now. And we have made really amazing progress even in the last couple of years. We have a new drug that's been recently approved for Alzheimer's disease that can actually interrupt the actual disease process. We have other new drugs and new treatments that are going to be coming available in the next 18 months to 2 years. I expect that we will have a new treatment on the market probably this year that will also have a significant impact on Alzheimer's disease. We are studying new ways to even prevent Alzheimer's disease in individuals who may have a risk for that. And we are exploring even other conditions that are at high risk for Alzheimer's disease, like patients with Down syndrome, who we think we can make interventions on as well. So we have made remarkable progress, and this is a very exciting time.
Alzheimer's is probably one of the scarier things for people who are over 65, as a lot of us have seen our mothers and fathers deteriorate with the disease. As you talk about new interventions, you were working on finding if people had the amyloid protein
That's right.
creates Alzheimer's.
That's right.
How far beyond the discovery have we gotten?
So we can now detect amyloid protein in a patient who has no symptoms of memory loss even. So we have blood tests that we can do now. We have new types of brain scans that we can do now. So we can help identify people quite early in the disease to find out if their memory loss is due to Alzheimer's disease. And in those cases where we do identify it, we can now begin to recommend actual treatment that will remove that abnormal protein. That's very exciting.
And as you expand that down the road, that gives you another avenue to attack you already know what's causing it, so now you have another avenue of research to fight that one thing.
That's right. So we can now start treatments which are designed to remove this amyloid protein. We think amyloid protein is the spark that lights the fire in the brain to damage the brain. It's not the whole story, but it does seem to be the initiating problem. And so by removing that, we think that may improve all of the downstream processes that damage the brain. Now, is it a cure? It's not a cure yet, but we are making huge steps in being able to remove this unfortunate protein that seems to gum up the works in the brain.
As I think about it, we found the source, so the problem now, I suppose, is finding a way to combat the source and combat it in different individuals, because, as you said, Down syndrome individuals are more susceptible. Seems that black and brown people are more susceptible. So where do we go with the research to define treatment and care?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Dr. Head. My feeling is we are still learning about all of these subtypes of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is really not just one disease. It's almost like a overlapping group of circles that include other problems as well. So, for example, it can be genetics. That would be a case with Down syndrome. For black and brown people, there does seem to be differences. So, for example, when we test people for this amyloid protein, we find that if they are African American, they tend to be somewhat older when they pick up high levels of this protein now than Caucasian people are. Now, we don't quite understand why that is. We think that the levels of dementia seem to be just as high in the African American population, maybe even higher, but the reasons for that may be just a little bit different. And so Alzheimer's is one problem, but there are other intersecting problems that can also add to that. It could be diabetes, it could be cardiovascular disease, heart disease, blood vessel problems. So it could be genetics as well. So we are still trying to unpack all of that. So that's something that you and I can continue to talk about, and we will have new data. It's emerging almost weekly. We learn more and more and more about that. Today I just was looking at a manuscript that just came across my desk where they analyzed something like 270,000 people, and they identified 3 patterns of brain changes that occur with aging. And there's a healthier pattern, and then there's a kind of intermediate pattern, and then there's an Alzheimer's pattern. And we're still trying to unpack who is most susceptible to those different patterns. Is it your genetics? Is it your lifestyle? Is it your race or ethnicity? We still really are trying to understand all of those factors.
So when you get into a predisposition for an attack on the brain, then you have this pattern that you can follow, that you can attempt to find the breaking point for that, would you say?
Right. So one of the studies we're doing here at the Center for Cognitive Medicine is called the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative. This has been the longest running study, natural history study of its type. It started almost 15 years ago now. And it's not a treatment study. It's basically following people either when they get treatment or when they don't, as the patient decides, but we follow them over many, many years all the way to autopsy. And the whole idea is to learn what is the natural history of people who don't have memory loss, and then the natural history of people who do have memory loss. Look at their brain images on the screen, look at their blood-based measures, and look at their autopsy data when they pass away. And by that, we actually learn those different pathways that people naturally go through. And of course, many of these folks are going to get new treatments now. And so we didn't have those treatments before, but now we have to adapt to that and learn how does that treatment change that path.
So now you have a different group, several different groups, as I hear you say it.
That's right.
You've got people who had treatment, people who started treatment earlier or later, depending upon severity and onset.
That's right.
Okay, so then you, not being a scientist, then you are at a point where then you can start to devise treatment protocol for each one.
That's a very good insight, because one size does not fit all.
True.
And one of the things that we're beginning to think about is, how do I assess individual risk factors for you or me or anyone else who comes to their doctor when they're 60 or 65 or 70? How can we tell physicians and patients how to optimize their health and their risk, adapt to their risk of developing memory loss and aging? It's really an interesting problem, because we can do these studies with 270,000 people, but how do we apply that to the individual person? That's not so simple.
Well, when you've got a sample that large, then it creates yet another problematic situation of being able to identify those that fall in a particular stream, would you say?
Well, let's put it this way. When you study thousands of people, almost any effect becomes large, right? Because you're studying thousands of people. That's just basic statistics. But then applying this huge group data to an individual patient is tricky. And so we try to then make predictions So, for example, another one of our studies is focused on the risk for women. And this study is called the CHAMP study. It stands for Cognitive Health After Menopause. And the goal of that study is to take normal women between 50 and 70 and try to identify the factors that either increase their risk for Alzheimer's disease or decrease their risk. And then when we identify those risks, then we can start saying, well, this person is vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease and this person is less vulnerable. And that's how we can individualize our risk prediction models, if you will.
And with the level of vascular problems that people of color have, there is a need in that research, as I see it, to have a significant number of people of color who have vascular issues as part of the research model.
That's right. And as you and I have talked about before, one of the challenges in this field has been the lack of African American participation in research studies in Alzheimer's disease. And I think we're really making progress in this area, but we have a long way to go. And we need to get representation from, as you put it, black and brown people involved in these studies, because otherwise we will not be able to say, does this treatment work for you? Does this treatment work for a man with vascular problems as well as Alzheimer's disease? Because those two things can overlap. And so we need to understand the risk factors that might be unique for African Americans or might be unique for Asian Americans or Hispanic Americans as well as Caucasian Americans. And so that we have to have involvement, and our field has recognized that we haven't done a good job with this in the past, and we are making an enormous attempt to kind of correct the ship, to right that ship, and make and invite people of color and other ethnic and racial minorities to help join us in this fight that's really for all of us.
And the angst that one has when one gets older, given the propensity for African Americans to be involved in Alzheimer's, Alzheimer's program that I went to said that in the next 30 years, no, next 6 or 7 years, 20% of all Alzheimer's patients will be of color, which is a heck of a pronouncement when we make up such a small part of the overall population of the country.
So that's an ominous sounding prediction for sure.
Absolutely.
There's been a lot of debate recently about how we define Alzheimer's disease, right? And there has been an argument from some people that we should define it by the presence of blood-based tests, spinal fluid-based tests, brain scans. And there's others of us who say, no, that's not adequate. We have to have the symptoms as well. In other words, we don't say a person has Alzheimer's disease just because they have a positive blood test. That would be unfair to them. What we can say is they might be at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease, but we don't believe we don't call it the disease. So for African Americans, we might say, well, they have risk for developing dementia, memory loss, but that risk may be due to Alzheimer's disease. It may be due to Alzheimer's disease plus vascular problems of the blood vessels, or heart disease, or something like that. So we have to be comfortable with that complexity. And I think for African Americans particularly, we have, with traditional and underrepresentation, with inequities in healthcare, we have an opportunity now to kind of begin to pick off that low-hanging fruit and make some real progress very rapidly. So I guess I wouldn't be particularly alarmed at that figure that you gave me, 20%, because I think that actually opens up opportunities now for early identification and treatment. So we want to identify this disease as early as possible. That's a key issue that I would want our listeners to hear, is that early intervention seems to pay big dividends. When I started my career, we would see patients quite late in the disease, right? Before they would ever come to clinical attention. Now we're seeing people even with just the slightest amount of memory loss. That's a big advance. That's a big change. And so for African Americans, I think it's particularly important not to have this idea in your head, oh, memory loss is normal. Memory loss is normal part of aging. It is not. There are people who retain their memory all the way till the end of their life, and that's what we want to achieve for everybody.
The question of inheritance comes to mind, something that is handed down through the family over generations. Is there an indicator that says that if grandmother had it, then all of us are predisposed to have Alzheimer's also?
Well, we do think family history is a risk factor. It's not a given that because your grandmother had dementia that you're going to develop dementia. So we know there are lifestyle factors that can modify one's risk. Even if your genetics put you at higher risk, you could compensate for that by lifestyle changes, right? So eating healthy, exercising, keeping your brain stimulated, taking care of all the other factors in your body that may impact your brain's risk. And so we don't think that genetics is destiny in most cases. Genetics and family history can certainly contribute. There's no question about it. And we do use family history as one of the indicators of risk, but it's not a given.
Well, as we close this interaction like we usually do, tell us one thing that you would like for our viewers to remember, or something significant that's on your mind that needs to be put out there.
Sure. Well, we have made enormous progress in interventions that can reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. We have made enormous progress in identifying populations that may be at increased risk. A great example of that would be Down syndrome. Down syndrome is actually the most common genetic cause of Alzheimer's disease, actually.
Really?
Yeah. It is the most common genetic cause of Alzheimer's disease is Down syndrome. And we are really accelerating our treatment and prevention interventions in folks with Down syndrome. We want to let the African American community know about these efforts because Down syndrome is no respecter of race. It can occur in any racial or ethnic group, and those folks are a big target for our assistance now. We want to involve them in our treatment studies. They were also another population that was ignored for decades, and that has changed now. We want to encourage people to, first of all, identify memory loss early. Don't let it fester. Get get an assessment, and we can offer remarkable treatments now that are going to make a real difference to the long-term risk of this disease. So I think this is a very optimistic time, and I'm excited that you and I get to talk about this today, and that we form these partnerships to get the word out to people. So come see us.
You just made me ask you another question. Folks, when they forget what they went into the room to get and walk out and realize they didn't come out with what they went in to get, is that early Alzheimer or just being human?
I think that's just being human. We're all a lot more forgetful than we realize.
I know that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to The Alzheimer Doctor. And we are happy to have his presence on NorthNashvilleTV.com, the voice of the voiceless.